Good morning and good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm so excited. It is Friday. I love the energy of a Friday. I love what I do. I love my shows and I love my guests. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and you are tuning in to yet another episode of Read Me Live. And you already know, nobody but the good Lord knows what is going to happen during one of my shows. It could go anywhere, but it's always a lot of fun. Today's guest is Justin McSweeny, and we're going to discuss meaning, mind, and the path to well-being. Good morning, Justin. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifa. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
I'm excited. I'm hyper. You can tell I'm always up.
I'm going to tap into that energy and meet you. We're going to resonate together.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Because we got a
Yeah.
lot of time to spend talking about you. So tell
Oh,
us who
goodness.
you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And so you know my name, and I live in sometimes it's Central Florida, sometimes it's South Florida. It depends on who you ask, but I'm on the East Coast of Florida, about an hour north of Palm Beach. And my wife and my cat live in a wonderful little house. And one of my big passions in life is horticulture and gardening and botany. And so I grow a lot of plants. So I have my window open. Probably can't see the plants, but that's one of my things that brings me joy in my life. And so I'm in my element when I'm outside playing, excuse me, with my plants and being happy. And Florida affords me that opportunity to do year-round gardening and growing. So I'll speak to that as one of the first insights into who Justin is and what he does, and to speak on a little bit more of a mundane perspective. I work for the state of Florida, and I work with the citrus industry, which of course is ailing at the moment. So that's why I'm involved. And we do inspection. We go out. We have a 10-county district, and we basically just stare at trees. Which, as somebody who loves plants, way I get paid for this. So that's what I do to bring home the cat food and buy coffee and things like that. That's my. It's not it. I've only been doing it for a couple of years. Prior to that, I used to joke that I was chronically self-employed. I had a restaurant, a newsstand, and 2 landscape businesses in the last 30 years here in Florida. So that's a little bit about my backstory and my history.
Okay, so if you're chronically doing something, how do you get cured?
Go
What's
work
the
for the
cure?
state. I cured my chronic self-employment by going and working in a bureaucratic agency. uh,
What
so yeah.
made you decide to do that though?
Well, it was very practical. I was 53 years old when I started working for the state, and doing landscaping is very physical labor. And my body was like, dude, you keep this up, and we're gonna remind you of all the things you do to yourself. So I have some arthritis in my neck, and my hip is not really happy with me. So I just had to stop the physical labor. As much as, again, I love the outdoors and I love plants. This is the transition into the sort of more bureaucratic role still affords me the opportunity to be out in nature, be outside, working with the beauty of what plants afford to me and provide me in my life. So it was a
That
good
is
transition.
That's so beautiful. I want to say namaste to Star. Thank you for tuning in all the way from Southern Australia. It's good to know that we have people tuning in from all over the world. I love to find out where people are watching this since this is live. And I always let people know go ahead and share the show because what we discuss on this show, your friends, your network definitely wants to hear as well. And we got to learn more about Justin. So, Justin, I'm going to ask the question and I don't know if you've been asked this question before. We'll see. But when you're out with the trees, do you just hug them?
I have been known to hug trees, yes, and I don't have any reservation in admitting that. I've hugged pine trees, mango trees, because they're my babies and they bring me in my beautiful, delicious mangoes. So I'll go out. I hug them with my hands because they're smaller. But the
Okay.
pine tree, I could like this. But the mangoes are a little skinnier, so I grab them and I thank them, and I'm like, now I'm going to trim you. So don't talk to them like, we're going to have a haircut today. So don't get upset, wait, and then we'll cut branches. But yeah, I do. I connect with my plants.
Okay.
To what degree, I don't know, but from my end, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I show my gratitude and appreciation, because a lot of what I grow in my yard,
Mm-hmm.
feed me. It's like a food forest, as the younger ones would say.
Well, I like that. I think we need more food forests these days and more people who
Yeah.
grow their own food. I mean, there are so many different chemicals and pesticides that we have if we don't do it ourselves. So tell us about the meaning behind mind and the path to well-being. How do you get to the path to well-being?
Okay, thank you for asking that question, because, and I will reveal one other asset or aspect of what I do in my life, and that is
Okay.
I have a show, and I
Okay.
believe we're going to have you come and talk with me over there, and that'll be really exciting. So to anyone viewing, that will be something that perhaps we can link up and get people access to that. We can talk with you there. But
Okay.
the show that I do, where you bring up meaning, is the three pillars of my show. The undergirding of my show is sense, meaning, purpose. So
Okay.
meaning is in the middle. And what I do in those moves that I make, and it's leveraged by philosophy and maybe a little psychology and cognitive science, is sense making.
Okay.
And it starts as something as primitive as onboarding sense data into these living systems, and how these living systems extract data from the environment or information from the environment. So my eyes, if I'm sighted, I bring in that. If I can smell, which I can't, but some people can smell. If you can taste, you can hear, tactile. All these things are affording us information, letting us palpate the environment around us and understand what's going on. And from that, there is a secondary motion of meaning making. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what do we do with this sense data? What are we doing when we're making sense of the world around us? And it's not just the crude, primitive, physical extraction of information. It's making sense of having another individual in my space that I'm talking to. And what am I filtering? What am I bringing in from your presence or someone else who I'm engaged with? So all of that gets moved around into a sort of meaning making system, if you will, or a machinic process of, and I use that as a metaphor, like meaning making. And so, what does the environment? What is meaningful in the environment? What stands out to me? So it could be a kind of relevance extraction from the environment, and I
Mm-hmm.
make sense. I make meaning through sense in
Mm-hmm.
that. And then the next step I make is finding a purpose in all of this, in the meaning that I extract from the sense. Then is there a purpose to it? Is there something that would be an attractor to me to allow me to do something that would
Mm-hmm.
then be satisfying to me or to the other that I am engaged with? So it's all of those little things in a dance or in concert together,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're working well, I think that's when well-being shows up for us, and that the sense making is not adulterated. It's not being brought on board in errant ways or ways that are distorted, and that the meaning making is healthy. So that's psychology right there. And so when we make meaning of things, we could have the history of ourselves informing how we make meaning. We are updating systems. We constantly update our engagement with the world with new information. We then form different perceptions of what's going on, and that can influence the purpose that we seem to connect with, or that we seem to feel, right? And I use seem just as a qualifier to allow us to have as much space as we need, given our diversity as persons
Mm-hmm.
in the world. All our sensibilities and how they were forged from our histories. So I'll stop there, because it's so sense, meaning, purpose, and I'll stop there.
No, what you were saying was interesting. And just watching you describe it, you can see your passion in what you're doing.
Mm.
So that's your podcast, and you have a website, correct?
I do, and it's under construction right now. I have something called Illumine Life, like you're
Okay.
illuminating. It's Illumine Life,
Right.
and I'm redoing everything, because I started it like 7 years ago, and every year or so, I want to change everything, and so I need to stop doing that and more just
No, you don't.
thought
No, you
thoughtful
don't.
edits.
No, you
Well,
don't.
yeah,
I've been doing the same thing for 30
okay,
years. For 30
okay,
years. I've been,
yes,
well, no, my asharifa.com, I probably had it for about 20 years. And
okay,
when I first launched that website, I believed that it was done, it was complete. I had it, where I wanted
hmm
to be. And then some time later, I'll modify it, update it, and then I'll ask myself, okay, why didn't you just do this from the beginning? And then I'd be like,
Mm,
because now it's wonderful. And then 6 months, 2 years later, I do the same thing. And I'm like, you know
okay.
what? I just begin to understand that it's a living, breathing,
Yes.
mechanism, and it's never complete.
Amen. Amen. No, I completely agree. The only thing I was sort of kind of teasing myself about is I'm just taking a wrecking ball to it and eliminating everything that I had 2 years ago,
Okay.
not out of spite or not out of any kind of, not this wasn't good. It's just
Hmm.
that I'm so inspired by things that have happened and things that I've
Hmm.
people I've made contact with. And again, like when we're forging purpose, we're
Hmm.
updating prior thoughts and beliefs about things, and
Absolutely.
that can show up. So I'm going to do what you do in the future. I'm going to gently and gingerly love that, because it is a living system. It is a
Mhm.
bunch of ones and zeros, but as far as I'm concerned, it because I'm investing myself into it. And the whole
Mhm.
point of this Illumine Life is
Mhm.
to help people, not necessarily in a strong prescriptive way, but to give them virtual tools
Mhm.
to again sense make, meaning make, purpose discovery, things like
Mhm.
that, and just gentle, non-prescriptive ways of evaluating one's way of making sense of things,
Mhm.
one's way of making meaning for things. So it's that tool that you can then take into a spiritual practice or
Mhm.
a faith system or
Mhm.
everyday navigation of life experience, and say, ah, yes, that guy Justin, he had that thing on that and my name's not anywhere on the website, but that Illumine Life that I
Mhm.
went to had this little module where they talked about blah blah blah. And so that's what I aspire to, is that people can just use it as a kind of it's like a toolbox, and you pull a tool out and you tweak something in your own practice. So it's not prescribing
Mhm.
anything specific to people. It's just um, it's like virtual tools, basically,
Mhm.
is probably the best way to say it.
No, but that's fine. Believe me, I have taken a wrecking ball to plenty of websites, mainly because it's like you grow, you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
If I was the same person in 2025 that I was in 2002, then I haven't grown, I haven't
Yeah.
evolved. And that's an excellent point that the star makes in saying updating your website
Yes.
often is good. It creates better search engine ranking, better SEO, and so
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why it creates better SEM for the websites, or
Mm-hmm.
SEO,
Mm-hmm.
is because that if you haven't modified it or you haven't changed it, the algorithm, Google, they'll notice and be like, okay, well, this website most likely is just sitting there, is not active, nobody's using it. But
Yeah.
somebody who continues to update their website, add fresh content, add new information, they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, they're still working on it, they're still making it happen, so this must be active, and people are putting something into it. So I definitely like that. That's
Yeah.
one reason I mentioned your website, is because I love the name of the website. You said you don't
Oh, okay.
mention yourself, and that's a choice. I don't. I always
Yeah.
tell people, because they always ask me which way is right or which way is wrong, and I always say whatever way you prefer. You know,
Right.
but I love the name of what you're doing. I think
Thank
it's
you.
I think it's wonderful, and it definitely shows your growth. Now, you mentioned briefly um, using your senses, but how do your sixth sense play into that?
Ooh. Ooh, we're getting into some big space now.
I just want to know. Too
Okay,
big?
yeah, no, no, good, no, 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 no. I like that. Oh, I'm getting moved here, and I want to acknowledge Star. Thank you so much for that comment about the SEO. I totally agree, and you validated that as well. Okay,
Mhm.
sixth sense. I'm a strange bird, and I'm going to have some heterodox opinions, but nobody needs to
That's
take
why
me
we're
seriously.
here. None of
That's
this is
it. That's
normal.
it. So what I love in that mode of palpating that perceptual mode of the sixth sense is,
Mhm.
I am very big about the imaginal,
Okay.
and that is a sacred word to me,
Mhm.
and I'm very intrigued by what we would call intuition. And
Mm.
so if we have two circles, the
Yes.
imaginal and the intuition, and when we get that Venn overlap within those two circles,
Mhm.
and like you and I are together in conversation, there's a philosopher that I follow. He says this so elegantly. He calls it dialectic into dialogos, and the logos shows up. And some could call that God. Some
Okay.
could call that the universe or the divine. It's fine. The logos is what Plato called it, the logos. and
Okay.
that was the ineffable. So when I get into the idea in my thought bubble about the imaginal and the intuitive working
Mm-hmm.
together, and with a second party or a circle of people, and they
Mm-hmm.
open up that space, that's when I think that those things that would otherwise perhaps be obfuscated or obscure to us
Mm-hmm.
um, show up for us, because we're letting go of the guarded, analytical, dry, propositional type of person that we are, that has to do that in the world. Like that's another mode of sense making, meaning making, and all that stuff. But we can transition over here to where the sense making is bringing in that sixth sense. It's bringing
Mm-hmm.
in that extra, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the meaning changes. That's a metamorphosis. And then the purpose is probably a lot more, I don't want to use sacred just yet, but
Mm-hmm.
it's divine. It's this presence that you can take note of and
Right.
imbue it in yourself and bring it into yourself. So I'll stop there and see if that's
If it
something.
resonates.
Yeah. See what you think of that. Because like I said,
I like
I'm an odd duck, but
you are not. You are not. You are so
I like being an
interesting
odd.
to me.
I like being an
No,
odd duck.
no, but you're so interesting to me because I can see it, it's like I believe, and I tell people all the time, this is just the world according to Sharifa Hardy. I believe that you're very gifted. And because when I watch you, and this is something I watch in most people, it is more pronounced in some than others. It's like
Okay.
I can see your eyes kind of go from left to the right, like you're pulling the data, like you're pulling the information in, you're pulling the technical at the technical aspect of it in, but then you pull from the right as well, which creates a
Mm,
balance. You pull in the intuition, you pull in the feeling, you pull in the emotion to what you're saying. And so I
mhm,
think that's why it's considered an odd duck, because most people tend to not necessarily be balanced, where they're
mm,
like, I'm completely technical, it's scientific, that's the way it is, and there's some people who they're just so on the right side. It's not left brain, right brain, that's what people say, but I watch it as
right.
far as the way people communicate, right? So I
Mhm,
think it's
mhm,
beautiful. So I would sum it up in two different ways from what you said. Number one is, I always have to go back to scripture where it
mhm,
says, when any two are joined in his name, God is the third, right?
mhm,
Because
mhm,
you and I, like you said, us talking, us communicating, we're here for one purpose. And if we agree on that purpose, then God's like, okay, they agree, they joined together. Let me bless what they're already doing. And we're
mm,
doing that because we set an intention, right? To come
mhm,
together at 8 o'clock in the morning to have a conversation about what you're passionate about, who you are, right? And then also the other part of that intent is, what are other aspects that Justin might need to know? What is some
mm,
information that I might be able to provide? So,
mhm,
that's kind of what I got out of what you were saying. But I love the aspect of the sacred. I really
mhm,
do, because I always use the example that if you put any two people, man and a woman, on a deserted island, and these two people just so happened never to ever read any book, any word of scripture, right? They will survive. they
mhm,
will they will procreate. They will figure out how to eat, how to get shelter, how to do whatever it takes to get to the next generation. And that's what I get out of the meaning. Now, for you, how did you come about this? Because you said that you were a entrepreneur, and you
mhm,
were a chronic entrepreneur, a chronic self-employed person, which I can relate to. I can tap into that energy because I'm getting ready to publish my fifth book. My fifth
okay,
book is actually a workbook teaching people how to read tarot, right? But
okay,
my first book was called "And Here's Your Box: From Laid Off to Loving Life."
ah,
And whenever you get laid off, you leave a job, they always hand you that box. And that box always includes all of your personal items, the pictures on your
mm,
desk. Say, like, take this box, get all your stuff, and get out. Right.
that's it,
So
yeah.
I was laid off 8 times.
Ooh, okay,
at least 8 times. And that's what started my journey. So for someone who chronically is self-employed, works for
Mm-hmm.
himself. And my father actually taught me that. He said, Sharifa, you are not unemployed, you are self-employed. And when
Mm-hmm.
I began to change my mindset, everything in my life changed. My business changed, my income changed, my clients changed, right? So how did you go from where you were to where you are?
My appreciation for you were mentioning the left and right hemisphere loosely as a metaphor,
Mhm,
and um, I've always sort of occupied, I think, more of the what would be the right brain, I guess, to use
mhm,
to continue the metaphor, the creative, the abstract thinker, someone who doesn't have a strong linearity or rigidity to thinking, and I guess I let that out in these kind of oscillatory patterns. So when I do go in to starting a restaurant or starting a landscape business, that I recruit the left side, and it's, you know, again, more of the dry analytical and so forth. But I think we all, one degree or another, as we age, as we go through midlife, that we have the opportunity to create a renaissance for ourselves. And I think what happened, there was a confluence of that stage of my life, or my arriving into that state. I was going to say it arrives for me, but no, I arrived into that stage of life. Uh, oh, wonderful. Thank you, Star. And so it was an opportunity and an invitation for me to open that aperture a little bit and be more the creative, more the the loose thinker, in the sense of less analytical, less propositional, and more into the imaginal again. And another influencing factor was I had gotten very sick when I was 41 years old. That was about 15 years ago. And that illness was a wake up call. I always, in other conversations, I say it's a master that showed up in my life. It
mhm.
just about killed me. It made me
Oh,
very,
wow.
very sick. Yeah, it was mostly cognitive. It was mostly a mental thing where I had no short term memory. My ability to speak had been very much diminished. I had no speech fluency. My ability to function physically had been diminished to some extent, with a
Mhm,
little Parkinsonism
mhm,
and pain, neuropathy, all this crazy stuff. And I went to a neurologist, and they said, "Oh, it's MRI," and they found that I had Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid thing.
mhm,
And the best thing I can divine from all of this madness that happened in 2011 was that there is something that happens with people with Hashimoto's, and it's called Hashimoto's encephalopathy, which is a sort of a brain big boo boo thing, you know, that goes on. I don't know the technical stuff, but I read the manifestations and the presentations of that thing, and I'm like, bingo. So I
that's it.
wonder, maybe I can't diagnose, but I wonder, okay, probably that's what happened. And there were interventions in the clinical side of things that can be done to help ameliorate that, or remedy that.
Mhm,
And I didn't go that route, but I took care. I took a new stance on my life, and I
mhm,
pivoted out from again, chronic self-employment. I worked 7 days a week for years. I
mhm,
ran myself hard, and part of that was trauma informed. I had, you know, adversarial childhood, you know, blah blah blah.
mhm,
And I'm not going to get into that, but I was laboring with those manifestations from that history,
okay.
and all of that came together again, maybe the last 15 to 16 years. And so in being traumatized or re-traumatized by that illness, I thought, I got to get my crap together. I got to ask some questions about life and existence, and not so much for me, you know, that
Mhm,
was part of it, but just broadly, like, you
mhm,
know, humanity and my fellow persons in the world. And so I went onto this huge, they call it a rabbit hole or a vortex of philosophy and some spiritual things and psychology and cognitive science and some medicine, to, like, you know, what the hell's wrong with me, and that kind of stuff. So all of that was a creole that was forming, and again, in the time of my uh, allowing myself a renaissance in my life. And so um, for 7 or 8 years now, I've just been deeply committed, almost obsessively committed to studying philosophy,
mhm,
and to take little nibbles on cognitive science and little nibbles out of psychology, because they overlap and they relate to each other, and trying to understand this self and
mhm.
the selves in the world that I interact with. So I'm meandering a little bit. So hopefully that kind of answered your question. But yeah, that's why I arrived at this creative fount of, and it's not me saying this egoically, but that I enabled this person, this character that inhabits the world,
Mhm.
to wick up as much diverse information as I can from so many minds and so many voices, and then do my own tapestry, my own synthesis project of like, well, what does that mean? What sense and meaning and purpose am I deriving from all of that? And then how can I share that without too much, gingerly with the world? Share it with the world in a way that is unique to myself and may have some impact for the better,
Then
as
you
opposed
launched the
to tear it down.
podcast.
I launched the podcast.
Mhm.
Oh, and a quick tangent. I'll share that the first guest I had
Okay.
was the perfect guest, because she wrote this book called No Pressure, No Diamonds.
Okay.
Her name was Terry Dillian. I don't mind shilling that book because she was diagnosed with ALS, and
Oh
so
wow.
she had a date on the calendar, and her book was a sort of coming to terms with mortality, with
Hmm.
her demise. And she was a therapist, so she had some background in psychology and therapist
Hmm.
training, and she was sort of an American. She was into Buddhism, so
Hmm.
she had sort of that mindset, and she went took us through her stages, just like grief. When you're given the death sentence from a doctor from like a really bad cancer
Hmm.
or ALS,
Hmm.
and the book was powerful. So she was my first guest. So I was coming out of this thing too of brain injury and not really dancing well with life and finding myself. And she set things off for me. So much love to Terry. She passed about 6 months after the interview, but it was so wonderful to have her. So,
Oh
and
wow.
I met her at a meditation conference, and we quickly set up a connection with each other. And I said, would you come on now that your book's published? Would you come on? And she
Mhm.
did. She said, perfect.
Oh wow. She was there.
Yeah,
She gave you that.
she
That
did.
is so beautiful.
She did.
And
She yeah.
I can relate to what you were saying. I made a post yesterday and I said, I don't know if I'm feeling emotional because there are at least four people that I know of who have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And well, three that I know personally. And then I was doing a show, I was doing Read Me Live. And one of the guests, Frank, my dear Frank, we were talking about walking and fitness and meditation. And then he was like, yeah, and I went for my treatment for cancer this morning. And then he went on. I'm like, wait a minute, Frank, hold on, back up. You just dropped that into the conversation. I
Yeah.
had no idea. And then the conversation changed and he just really opened up and he really shared. And I think that was one of the best. I've done some really great shows, um, but it was one of the best. But after the show, I love talking to guests after the show. That's when it really gets good, Justin. That's when it gets
Yeah,
good.
I've had
And,
those moments. Yeah.
because everybody's like, all my friends say, when I ask them, I'm like, I do this live. I read tarot live. And do you
Mm-hmm.
want me to do a reading? And they're like, I want you to do a reading, but I'm not going to do it live. And I'm like, well, if we're not going to do it live, then I'm not going to do the reading. Right. Because I'm a third generation reader. I've been reading for so long. And I didn't want to, in this phase of my life, you talk about what your journey and what you went through. I think in addition to everything you just said, there's an aspect that age plays into it. For me, I'm 49.
Okay.
I'll be 50 in March. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, I have this different confidence. I have this different clarity of what I want to do. So when I was talking to Frank and after the show, he told me, he said, Sharifa, I didn't even intend to say that I had cancer. He said nobody knew. He hadn't told people. He was like, it just came out.
Okay.
But when you just start talking and you start opening up, you'd be surprised at what comes out and what you share. But that's why I do it live, because there's people watching and they need to be able to hear these stories and learn from what you went through. I think it's so
Yeah.
healing for everyone. I want to say salam to League TV. Yes, thank you. He says another amazing show. um League TV is definitely one of the friends of the show. He tunes in to every show, every show. I want to thank him for his love and his support. If he cannot make a show live, he watches it in the archives. But I
Okay.
haven't done one show where people haven't been inspired. People haven't shared information, but almost everyone comes back later, a few days later, like, man, this opened up for me after the show. This changed for me after the show. And I say that, like you said earlier, there's absolutely no ego in this. It is it's doing what I wanted it to do, and inspiring people. And that's what
Mhm.
I'm here to do. That's I finally at 49 years old can sit in what I was called to do. And this is
Mhm.
it. So with that said, because I think I can go on a tangent for a long time. Let's see what the
No
cards
worries.
have in
Okay.
store. Have you
Okay.
had a reading before, Justin?
Oh, yes, yes, ma'am, I have, and
Okay.
but it's been a while, so things might be interesting.
Okay, I was saying because I always ask because the ones who've had them before, I'm like, I do it a lot different.
Oh,
My
okay.
mom is like, you almost do a DIY reading because I always suggest and recommend to the guests that they write down the cards. The
Mm,
cards are just signs and symbols for
yeah.
a message to you, but maybe there's something in that sign or that symbol because there's really endless meanings for things. So
Right.
maybe if you Google it or research it, maybe there's an aspect of it that speaks to you different than how it speaks to me. So what
Right.
I've been doing since we started talking is shuffling the
Okay.
cards. Shuffling the cards for me does three things. Number one is my signs of spirit that I am going to do a reading. Number two, it releases any past energy from anybody I read for before. And number three, it allows me to concentrate and focus on you and your energy. So basically, like we said earlier, it allows me to tap in and tune in and connect
Mm,
because that's what we
mhm,
want to do. We want to connect to each other so that we can get messages that are for your highest good. Make sense?
mm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All righty. All right. So we gonna see what Justin needs to know.
What's showing up today?
What's showing up? So the first card is always your main issue. That's your theme.
Okay.
That's the main
Okay.
thing that's running through your life right now. And so your first card is the Hierophant.
Okay.
The Hierophant. So the Hierophant is about Hierophant is always difficult because usually I'm not saying it out loud, but the Hierophant is about spiritual truths, right?
Okay.
It's about finding your spiritual truths, what you actually believe in. And this usually
Hmm.
appears when people are moving in a direction where they have to ask themselves, what is it that I believe? Right? Because
Okay.
everyone around you may not necessarily believe what you believe. It doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing that they don't believe what you believe. They may, right? I don't know who's
Hmm.
around you, but this is
Yeah.
about you. This is about what, your truths and what the meaning of life is for you, right?
Hmm.
Um, the example I always use is like somebody who decides they want to be a Christian, but their entire family is Buddhist, right?
Hmm.
How do
Hmm.
you make that work? You don't necessarily, because this isn't about them. It's about
Yeah.
you, right? So
Yeah.
that's the
Exactly.
main
Exactly.
thing that I see right now for you. But
Okay.
what the
Okay.
challenge is over that is the Four of Cups.
Okay.
The Four of Cups. The Four of Cups, as far as challenges, is always that moment in time, because prior to, one of the things with the cards is it's not just about that card, that one card. It's about the cards
Hmm.
that come before it. It's about the cards that come after it, right? So
Hmm.
the Ace of Cups is always self-love, falling in love
Okay.
with yourself. Now, you didn't
Okay.
get that. I'm just giving you the previous one so we can figure out how we got to where we are, right?
Okay.
So the
Hmm.
Ace of Cups is the beginning. That's that self-love. You fall in
Okay.
love with yourself, and then that brings you to the Two of Cups. So the Two of Cups is partnerships, is that new relationship. You know,
Mm.
many people call the Two of Cups the energy of the honeymoon phase, where
Uh,
you meet and you're like, oh my God, I love them, but
yeah.
do you really know
Hmm.
them, right?
Mm,
So the
mm,
Three of Cups is that wedding. It's that celebration, because once you have two, then it multiplies. You get the baby, you get the family, you
right.
combine families, and now it's more than just the two. So that's a very idealistic phase, whereas the Four of Cups is that phase. Usually I say around, a few years later, when they're like, okay, we're married, now what? You know what I mean? There's a
Mm-hmm.
sense of, it's always a sense of, they call it a sense of restlessness, of where
Mm.
you've had that inspiration. I always look at this as something I don't do well, because like I said, I'm getting ready to publish my fifth book, and I love to write books. I love to
Okay.
release books, but I never push books. I never
Mm-hmm.
market books. I'm like, okay, so it's that point of where the inspiration may need a little push, is what I'm
Okay.
saying. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
even though she has her head down, there's a little bit like, oh my God, what do I want to do? All four cups are upright. They're not
Okay.
spilled. There's nothing wrong. It's
Uh-huh.
just I look at this as date night, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a marriage, especially a long time marriage. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you have to find new ways to spice it up, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
So this next card you have is the Page of Swords.
Okay.
Page of Swords. So the Page of Swords, pages are messengers. In the days of kings, way before cell phone, the king was busy running the kingdom. The king was
Mm-hmm.
busy sitting on the throne. He never got up to go anywhere. So he always sent the page. And the page is symbolic of youthful energy, youthful
Mm.
messages that come through. So the pages
Okay.
always brought messages. And because it's swords, swords are information, knowledge.
Mm.
Sometimes you need a message, somebody to bring you some information on what you can do to spice it up, to take what
Okay.
you believe and really find a new way of looking at it, a new way of making things happen. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because the next card that you have is the Queen of Swords.
Okay. If I tuck my head down, I'm writing. So don't.
I
I'm
know, I
not.
got
I'm
you.
not.
That's why I'm
Okay.
holding it a little bit
All
longer. It's
right.
the
Thank
Queen
you.
of
Yes.
Swords.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
So the queens and the kings, the one thing that they have in common is that they are established, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Again, you don't have it here, but the knight's energy, because you have your pages, your knights, your queens, and your kings. But the
Mm-hmm.
knight's energy, I always say, is someone between about 20 to 25. The knight is like somebody who just graduated college. They
Okay.
have their degree, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
you have your degree, you're on top of the world and you know where you're going, only to get to 50 something to realize at 20 I had absolutely no idea what I was doing and what the
Yeah.
road is ahead of me. So the
Okay.
queen and the king, they know, they've been there, they're established, they're not trying to figure it out, they're not trying to make it happen, they've already made it happen, they've already been there, done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
main difference between the queen and the king is the queen is very nurturing. The queen is always the giver of life. The queen is that feminine energy. And again, being
Okay.
swords are intellect, their
Okay.
thoughts, right? So the queen's energy of someone who knows, she knows. And not only does she knows that she knows. She's
Mm.
again not trying to figure it out. She has the
Okay.
information, she has the knowledge. The only I always call them challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people are like, oh, do you ever read anything bad? No, because there is nothing bad. You know, there's all, it's either a blessing or a lesson. And even with that
Mm-hmm.
lesson, you learn. So the
Yeah.
only challenge that in any time the Queen of Swords appears for me, that I always tell the person is understand the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So
Okay.
the queen can sometimes get so focused on the letter of the law that she forgets the spirit of the law. To me, this
Okay.
is like that politician who was like, this is the law. This is what we have to do. This is what we're supposed to do. Okay, but have a heart for the people. Have some compassion. Compassion is the highest form of love. To look at somebody else and say, there for the grace of God, go I. That's the
Mm-hmm.
only thing that I see with the Queen of Swords. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because the next card that you have is the Chariot.
Okay.
The Chariot is a major arcana card. and it's actually your second major arcana card. And
Mm.
the Hierophant as well. It's a major arcana card. So arcana meaning secrets or mysteries of the universe, right? So that's
Okay.
what we want to do. We want to unlock and tap into all the secrets of the universe. So in tarot, there are 78 cards. You got
Mm-hmm.
your major arcana, your minor arcana, and you also have your court cards, right? So you have a couple of court cards so far, and you have a couple of major arcana cards. So
Mm-hmm.
major means that these are events that will change the course of history.
Mm.
These are your marriages, your deaths, your births, your divorces. These are
Mm.
things where life is never the same. You can look at
Okay.
it as, you went from doing landscaping to working for the government. These are
Mm-hmm.
life changing events. Minor arcana cards, and so far you only have one, which is the Four of Cups, are
Mm-hmm.
things that affect you on a daily basis. You know,
Okay.
you may learn a different way to plant something. You know what I mean? You may
Mm-hmm.
realize it needed a little bit more sun. Okay, but these are things that you learn on a daily basis. They don't take you into a whole different atmosphere, right? So the Chariot, tarot is called the Fool's Journey. The
Mm-hmm.
reason it's called the Fool's Journey is because there's an expression that says God protects fools and infants, because those are the only two people don't think they know it all. So that's why the fool even starts this journey, is because he has to learn all these different lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the lesson he learned in the Chariot is about moving forward. That sometimes, and this happens when you see a huge rush, a huge change, things lifting off, things moving forward. That's what the Chariot does. He clears the battlefield, right? It's the idea that these people have been fighting for too long. We got to go in and break it up, right? We
Okay.
have to we have to get over this and move forward. So that's the energy of the Chariot. The next card that you have is the Four of Swords. Got a couple of fours.
Okay.
Fours are stability, but the four of
Thank you.
sword, the Four of Swords is my healing card.
Okay.
It says take time to heal, take time to think, take time to wait, right? Because in the Three of Swords, that's the card of sorrow, right? That's a card of pain. There was some pain. There really was some pain. Some pain existed. There was some loss, right? So that's over. That time is gone, right? You passed that. But so often when we get past any type of pain or loss or sorrow, we just want to keep moving. We want to keep going. We want to, no, this is a time. This is my peace be still card. This is
Mm-hmm.
about just waiting for that divine inspiration that I think we talked about it before, that information to come to you, for you to really decide which way you want to go. And then I
Mm-hmm.
always talk about the other aspect of the Four of Swords for me, is the expression that they say Oprah Winfrey said. And she said, when most people don't know what to do, they have to do something. She said, when I don't know what to do, I don't do anything until I know what to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so your next card is the Ten of Cups.
Okay.
The Ten of Cups. So the Ten of Cups is happy days, it's fulfillment, it's a happy life, all is well. Um, but tens, and I always talk, that's a minor arcana, is like that
Mm.
survey. Everybody gets it. We all have it on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you all like our service? 10 being the best, one being you need to do some work. But
Mm-hmm.
tens are completion. It means that
Okay.
whatever lesson you were going through, whatever lesson you were learning, that that lesson is complete. But in numerology, when you add the numbers 1 and 0, it comes back to a 1. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a new beginning. You cannot complete any cycle of your life without starting and beginning another cycle. So again, with the Hierophant, that tells me that there's new ideas and new direction, new beliefs that are coming in for you to go in another direction.
Okay.
Because the High Priestess is your next card. And the High Priestess is a major arcana card, right?
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm.
with the one of the main differences between the high priestess and the magician, for instance, is the magician has a whole bunch of tools in his backpack, right? The
Uh-huh.
high priestess only has herself. That's all she has. So the
Okay.
high priestess is about trusting your intuition,
Mm,
trusting what you know, trusting what you feel, trusting what you see, right? It's not about having tools or little gadgets or AI to tell you what you believe or having
mm,
anybody else tell you what to believe. This is about you knowing what's right for you, what direction you're going to go. And so people often ask the question, how will I know? If I'm at a crossroads, how will I know? Trust what you feel. Something
mhm,
inside of you is going to say, go right, go left.
mhm.
Okay, wait. Okay. Because the next card that you have is the Page of Wands.
Okay.
And the pages again are messages or news. So wands is about career. Wands is about action. Wands
Okay.
can be about, jobs, but it's usually just about action. So there's some news that's going to come in that allow you to take action. So what I
Okay.
did was a 10 card spread, right? And I gave you the position for the main one, the first one, which is
Mhm.
the issue. And everything else is like a salad, right? It's just the lettuce and tomatoes and all the stuff that's begin within the sandwich. So
Mhm.
the 10th card is always the final outcome. It says, okay, Sharifa, what are you talking about? At the end of the day, what is it that Justin needs to know? What on this current path that he's on, where is he going? What is the final outcome? And that is temperance.
Temperance. Okay.
And that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's a beautiful shift and it's a beautiful lesson. But temperance is about balance. And for me, temperance is always my alchemist card, right?
Okay.
Alchemy.
Uh-huh.
Temperance is about alchemy. And for somebody who understands alchemy, they understand the meaning. But I always often look at this as an excellent chef, right? When you're an excellent chef, you're not cooking with that recipe by you. You just put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You kind of go with your gut. You go
Mhm.
with what you feel. So that's what
Mhm.
temperance does. She pours a little bit in, she pours a little bit. It's everything is perfect. It's absolute balance because she knows how to create her magic potion.
Okay.
So if I were to sum everything up, it basically would tell me, wait, wait, right? Because in waiting and in meditation, you find new inspiration, you find new direction, new information comes to you. We don't have pages anymore, but we have texts, we have emails, we have phone calls, we have social media. When I'm looking for inspiration, sometimes I'll just go on Instagram and just scroll through, watch the reels, and I'm like, what comes to me? And I just notice what I notice, right? But
Mhm.
this is about once you receive that, trust what you feel, move forward, take the next steps and the next action, because there has been a point, or there may be a point of, I don't know what to do next, right? So that's what it means. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, if you'll remember, like a few moments into our talk, I was saying, well, I'm gonna just wipe the slate clean on Illumine Life and start over. And because we were talking about this sort of letting go of where I was, the position I was in 2 years ago, with what I want to present to the world as an alchemy tool,
Mhm.
because I love that you use alchemy. And uh, I talk to people on my show, and I call people alchemists when they come from a very terrible, dark past, but they converted it into the light, and they want to help people. They want to be the wounded healer.
Mhm.
They want to show as an example, this is what happened. This is where I am. I'm with you. I am going to hold space and all those things. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, no, because I think I need to process that. So yeah, right. So no immediate questions, because it flowed very nicely and you explained everything really well. So I think it's just now it's on me because that's why I wrote everything down. I want to make sure I have it here to digest and to process. So, but I
Oh,
love the cards. I love what came up.
Okay, well, thank you, Justin. We are
Yeah.
coming down to the last few moments of the show. And what I
Okay.
love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today.
Okay. I will start from a seemingly selfish motive, and I would encourage you to go to my interview series that I do, and Sharifa will be a guest shortly, hopefully in the next few weeks. And check it out. It's called IdeaCast Interview Series. It's on Spotify and YouTube. And I have had, I think I mentioned earlier, I have over 150 guests so far, maybe 158, something like that. And the premise of the show, as I mentioned earlier in this conversation, I'm exploring sense, meaning, and purpose. And so I bring people in from academia, from the arts, from everyday life. As I said, alchemists who converted their story of trauma and adversity into something that is beneficial for their fellow persons of the world. And that's where I find myself. Uh, Feeling as though I'm being a helpful person and being somebody who's contributing back again to my fellow persons of the world. So I would encourage that. I derive no revenue from it, so I don't mind shilling for it and speaking to it. And again, if you prefer audio only, I have it on Spotify. And to the audience directly from one person to another, I would say if this conversation finds you and you are in a space of transition or you're concerned about the in the world, that there are ways, there are means that you can anchor yourself, find yourself in a space of well-being and love. And how that manifests for each of us is different, of course. But I would suggest that you are not alone, and that there are allies out there that if you reach out and take action, that you can find a way to help yourself. And I say that sort of in a way to point back to the show. And there are so many guests that I've had that have so much insight and wisdom. So maybe the two things tie together. But stay strong, be encouraged, have faith, and just be assured that you're going to be okay and that you are okay right now. So I think that's it, Sharifa. I think that's what I would impart on the audience.
I love that. I love the entire message. But one of the things that stood out to me is, um, I will say, and I'm learning to get better to my mom. I be like, I just want everything to be okay. And my mom say, no,
Mm,
Sharifa, everything is okay. Right now, right here, this now, all is well. And so I love that you
yeah.
said everything is okay. Because so often people are like, when I get here, when I get here, and when I get here, and I get to that point in my life, then, and I get that job, then I'm going to be happy. When I get that spouse, then I'm going to be happy. When I get that new car, is going to, no, like, and I had this conversation with so many people, wherever you are. And I love, like you said to people, if you are watching this show, if this show came across you, just know that wherever you are in your life, you are right where you're supposed to be. So I just love it. I
Mm.
thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. Justin, thank you for being today's guest on Read Me Live. And to everyone who tuned in to watch this show live, as well as everyone who is watching in the archives, I definitely appreciate your support. But if you want to be right there where Justin is, visit my website at readmelive.com. Until next time, everyone have a safe,